Welcome to Type Tune Tint. I'm Tom Kranz. For millions of believers, there's no better source of inspiration than the Bible, the world's best-selling book with an estimated 5 billion copies in print. Today's guest, Dan Parr, has drawn on the Bible as a blueprint for his faith and daily life. So much so that he just spent 4 years creating what he calls a holy Bible that's easy to understand and read. And he's used his talent as a voice artist to create an audiobook version. Dan's faith has brought him through life's challenges, and now he's hoping his work will help others do the same. And I'm joined by Dan Parr from his palatial estate in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm here at my viewers are so sick of hearing this, my estate here in beautiful downtown Fanwood, New Jersey, 1.2 square miles of sheer heaven here in Union County, New Jersey. Dan, welcome aboard and thanks for being with me today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tom. Thanks so much for allowing me to come on.
So Dan is with us today because he has an interesting background, and he has shares with me a kind of early background in radio and in voice work. I did mine, 50 years ago at this point in my 20s. Dan does it now for a living. Tell us a little bit about what you do and the kind of work you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm a voiceover talent by trade. So I have been doing voiceovers from here in my home studio for a number of years, kind of on the side. And then about 3 years ago, I got downsized from my corporate 500 job. So I thought, oh, okay, I guess it's a good time to do this full time now. So I've been doing that and then narrating this project that I've been working on for the past 4 years. So yeah, that's day to day. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting here in front of my microphone for many hours a day.
I love that. Before we started rolling, I basically expressed my envy for the job that you do, because doing voice work for the people who do it, you do it from your home. You buy a decent microphone and a laptop and a program, and you're off and running. I love that. So you mentioned briefly the project you've been working on for the last 4 years, which is another reason why we're here today. Tell us about that.
So I found this out recently, Tom. It's kind of cool. I'm the first person in history to ever write, publish, and narrate all 66 books of the Bible. So that's what I've been working on for the past 4 years. And I didn't even know that I was the first person to do that until just recently, until after it's been done. It had been done for several months. I started looking around, and me and my buddy Chat GTP started talking, and it's like, you know what? There's nobody else has done this.
Well, how come you did it?
Yeah, I didn't want to do it, to be honest with you. In fact, I was reluctant to do it, and I call myself a reluctant Bible publisher because I did not have a desire to do it. 5 years ago, if you had said, "Hey, why don't you narrate the Bible?" I thought, "You're insane." I didn't think there was a need for it, and I didn't want to do it. But God, in His ever persistent way, kind of just continued to lead me down that path. It started, honestly enough, with just a simple little project. I'm a voiceover talent, so it makes sense that I would record something about the Bible, right? But I didn't want to do the whole thing because it's way too much work and I'm too lazy. So I thought I'll just do a little bit about the resurrection of Christ, a little video, put it up on my Facebook account for my friends and family. So I went to the book of Luke in the Bible, found the resurrection story of Jesus, thought, well, I'll reword this a little bit to make it easier to understand and read, and put that on Facebook. Put it on Facebook, got probably 3 or 4 likes, I don't know. And something began to stir inside me. It's like I really enjoyed rewriting that little portion. What if I did the entire book of Luke? How crazy would that be? And I put it off, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. So I did the book of Luke and thought, well, that's great. I'm done with that. I'll put it up on Audible, Amazon, see what happens with it. A few people started purchasing it. I thought, well, that's cool. And then I got this sense in my spirit, not audibly. God didn't tell me to do more, but He did, but not audibly. It was just kind of a sense in my spirit. It's like, the book of Acts is really the book of Luke part 2. Don't you think people need to know the rest of the story? It's like, yes. So I reluctantly did it.
So it's like a domino effect here, right? One thing led to another, and the dominoes kept falling.
Exactly like that. Yeah. So I continued just to crank these books out under protest. Honestly, I was telling God, we don't need another translation of the Bible. We've already got, 900 or whatever translations out there. We don't need one more. And I would say that often. And I think finally he got tired of hearing it. So again, felt him sense in my spirit just very firmly say, "Hey, Dan, why don't you let me decide what we need and what we don't?" And that was kind of like the mic drop moment, right? So it's like, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. So 4 years later, here we are with the completed work.
So let me pick up on that. So in my research for this, I did find, as you just said, there are a gazillion different versions of the Bible, not just the King James Bible, but many, many other attempts to make it more simplified, bring
Yeah.
it into, I don't know, bring it into the 21st century. Some people would say the Bible has always been in the 21st century, but let's just, for the sake of my stupid dumbness about the Bible, what makes so this Bible that you wrote, you basically rewrote in a simpler, basically using simpler language, correct?
Correct. Yeah. When I went out to do this, I wanted to do it. So if anybody didn't know anything about God, didn't know anything about Jesus, never heard about the Bible, they'd be able to pick this up and say, "Oh, I get it now."
Hmm.
So I went to the King James Version because I had to find something in public domain if I wanted to make a copy that I could sell. And I read the King James Version, got into a few these and thous and beseecheths and farthings, and I thought, "Ooh, that's not going to work." So I found another version in public domain called the World English Bible, which is much more modern and easier to understand. But even then, they left in a lot of non-contemporary words and things that just make you scratch your head if you weren't coming from a faith background.
Sure, sure.
So I thought, okay, well, let's lower the entry for people. And so I went through it, sentence by sentence, verse by verse for all 760,000 words to make sure that it was as low of entry as possible for people who don't come from a faith background, that they'd be able to pick it up and say, oh, this makes sense.
Sure. So what makes your version then different from other Bibles that have been so-called simplified?
Yeah, so one thing I do is a lot of the other Bibles have like section headings. I'll say, okay, this is the part where Jesus talks about talks to the woman at the well. I've stripped all those out and I put it back just into how it would have been originally, right? A lot of these were letters written to people.
Mm.
So in the letters, they don't have the section headings, which can be helpful, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to get it as stripped down and as basic as possible. So it's literally here's chapter 1, verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, and it goes like that through the entire Bible. So there's no section headings. And then also, if there are terms that reappear in the Bible, like cubit, a lot of people say, well, this is 4 cubits long. And people will go, well, what does that mean? A lot of the modern translations just leave it as cubits and they don't tell you what a cubit is.
Right.
Well, cubits about 18 inches, right? So I put it in there. Okay, if it's 4 cubits, it's about 6 feet long. So even if I leave the term in there, I'll explain what it is and
Mm.
kind of make it a little bit simpler for people to grasp what's going on in the story.
And then you also recorded, you did an audiobook version of this. By the way, folks, we're talking about, here's the cover, The Holy Bible, Easy to Understand Read Version by Dan Parr. And this came out, you finished this like within the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, actually, it went on sale right at the beginning of this year. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So it's relatively new. Here's an example of Dan's work in the simplification department. This is we have a couple of individual sentences that spoke to me as somebody who's spent a career making things simple for like a broadcast audience. This is from Mark. And the original sentence from the King James Bible is, "And there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing." And then your translation is, "A poor widow came and she put in 2 small brass coins worth less than a penny." Okay, I get it. I don't have to agonize over what a mite and a farthing is. So that's cool. So that's a really great example. And here's another one from Romans. I picked this because, again, it's one sentence. "For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man some would even dare to die." And your translation is, "For one would rarely die for a righteous person, yet maybe for a good person someone might dare to die." Okay, got it. So those are two examples that actually speak to me as a non-Bible reader. But would this actually spur me to like buy Dan's book? The bottom line is I actually did buy Dan's book. I've only started reading it because I've also been doing a bunch of other things. But the Bible, as as I learned in researching this, is the best-selling book of all time. Wikipedia estimates there are 5 billion copies in print right now. So I just kind of figured this is a podcast about creativity. How can I not do something about somebody who kind of tackled, a re-realization of the Bible? So here you are. So you didn't just decide one day to pick up different parts of the Bible and do this. You're a strong follower of Jesus, and you have a lot of religious background. Tell me where that began and where that began for you.
Yeah, so it actually began before I began. When my mom was pregnant with me, she was going through a very difficult time of her life. She had been suffering from these migraine headaches for a long time, and the only relief she could get was through these strong prescription drugs that her doctor was giving her. And so she had been taking these for a while, and turns out she gets pregnant. And she's very nervous about the effect all these drugs are going to have on her unborn child. So she goes to her doctor and says, "What's going to happen to my baby?" And he basically just shook his head and said, "Juanita, it's not good. These are the strongest prescriptions I can give you for relief, and they come with a whole host of side effects,
And you were the
including."
baby in question here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said it could be birth defects, mental retardation, some other sort of, complication. And he says, "I advise you to have an abortion." And so she was devastated to hear that. But she kind of went home and she and my dad began to pray about it. And they eventually landed to the place where they thought, okay, well, if she's pregnant, there must be a reason for it, right? We didn't plan this pregnancy, but yet God must have. So we're just going to go ahead and move forward. And if it's going to be a special needs child, we're going to trust that he's going to help us raise this special needs child. So I came out and made my debut a couple months later, and they checked me over. I had all my fingers, all my toes. They watched over the next several months, and I was developing as expected. So God had spared me from, some sort of difficulty
Hmm.
for some reason. And that kind of stuck with me when she told me that story when I was old enough to understand. So it made me realize, okay, I'm here for a purpose. I have
When
a
did she
reason.
tell you that story? What age were you? Do you
Oh boy,
recall?
I was probably, 8, 9, somewhere around there.
And did it mean
Um,
something to you at that moment, or did it sink in later?
it sank in more later, but even at the time, I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm here for a reason, right? I've got something to do. Now, Tom, later I realized that everyone is here for a reason. Everyone is born for a purpose. No one is here by mistake. God has a reason for all of us being here. But for me, it just kind of drilled it home that, okay, I've got a mission to fulfill. So you would think with that great start, I'd be the perfect Christian little boy. Well, that was far from the truth.
Oh yeah. So I was going
Oh,
to ask,
yeah.
were your parents church-going folks, and were you there as well?
Yeah, we were. And we went to church, pretty faithfully on Sundays. I'm not saying we went every Sunday, but we were pretty regular attenders. We had a regular church that we went to. And we did that for many years. And then something happened within the church. I don't exactly remember or know what it was, but for whatever reason, we quit going for a number of years and had
Hmm.
been out of the church. And then when I was about 13 or so, our whole neighborhood got flooded, right? We had to be
Hmm.
evacuated by boat, the whole thing, very dramatic. So my parents had lost almost everything.
Well,
Um, and about that time, like a couple days later after the flood, some people from our old church came by and they said, we know you guys just had this terrible event. We just wanted to bless you, love on you, give you this money. And they gave my parents a sizable financial donation.
and this
And
was
I thought,
after you had not been active in that church for a number of
for
years, huh?
for a
They
number of
just
years.
came out of nowhere, huh?
Exactly.
Well,
And I thought, wow, why would they do that? They don't owe us anything. We don't
hmm.
go there. And so that stuck with me, the fact that they did that, but still didn't get back into church. 5 years later, I'm 18 years old, got a little side hustle doing videotaping for companies and people. I get this gig that pays me $100. And I don't know where this came from, Tom, but for whatever reason, I thought, I'm doing pretty good right now. Don't really need this $100. I think I'm going to go back to that church and just drop it in the offering plate when it comes by and then scoot out the back, just as a way to say thank you, my way of saying thanks. So that was my plan. So one Sunday morning, I got dressed up. ready to go to church. My sister sees me and she immediately figures out what's going on. She's like, hang on, I'm going to go with you. It's like, ah, dang it. I didn't want that. Now I got to stay for the whole service. So she goes with me. We sit through the service. It's fine. Had no plan on coming back. We get home. Our neighbors are over. They said, well, we understand you went to church today. That's great. We've been looking for a church to go to. We'll go with you next week. Like, ah, no, now I'm stuck for another week.
Mm.
So I had to go back another week. And then it just kind of progressed from there. God continued to bring me back one way or the other. But then, I was learning, I was understanding more. But the real change for me happened when I started to read the Bible for myself. And I like to say, more than I read it, I think it read me. It showed me that I was a liar, a cheater, a stealer, a thief. I had done all these things and that my future did not look good because of it.
Mm.
So I took the prescription of Jesus Christ, making a substitute for my sins, taking my sins so that I could be forgiven. And I gladly took him up on that offer, and things began to change in my life. So I stayed in church, continued to read the Bible, lived, a good Christian life for a number of years. And my faith continued, excuse me, my faith continued to grow, working in corporate America, senior leadership position, 50 something years old, downsizing happens, I get laid off. It's
Mm.
like, well, okay, well, there goes that career. Now
What business were you in?
We were a outsourcing company. So companies would come to us when they needed to restructure a division or department, get things done cheaper, better, faster.
Oh,
And so they would turn that over to us, and we would basically be them inside their company, and they'd pay us to do their work, right?
I got you. Okay.
So we worked my company, my division, we did a lot of insurance. So we processed a lot of insurance claims and handled a lot of back end paperwork for insurance companies. So I was leading that and enjoying it, had done it for, 20 years or whatever. And that was suddenly gone. And
Mm.
I just, at that point, I didn't freak out though. I think the faith that I had building up for the past several decades had been working in my life. And I thought, okay, well, God's got this under control. This is no surprise to him. What am I supposed to do now? And that's when the idea came to me. It's like, well, how about you start working on that Bible you've been thinking about?
How old were you when you lost your job?
Let's see, I'm 57 now, so it was about 54,
Yeah.
53, right around there.
Yeah, I lost a job at 52, and that was scary because, I was 52.
Yeah,
And, there when I was in a broadcasting business, when I went on a bunch of interviews, I could just see in the eyes of the person who was interviewing me, who was always at least 20 years younger,
yeah,
the question that they never asked, which is, what's this older guy doing looking for a job now? What's wrong with him?
right.
I know that's unfair, but I guess it's human nature. Do you do you think so? You have a deep and abiding faith, which you've talked about and which is guiding you day to day, I'm guessing. Have you ever found that as an obstacle, either in work life or in professional life or in social situations? Do sometimes you think people look at you funny or not?
Yeah, so one kind of humorous thing that happened many, many years ago, there was this contest for, I think it was CMT, Country Music Television. They were holding a contest and they were bringing back the Dukes of Hazzard. Remember that TV
Yeah,
show?
sure.
So they were going to bring back an ambassador for the Dukes of Hazzard to like host the shows that they were going to do. And they said, submit a tape of you telling us why you should be on this show. And if you win, you get to host a show and we'll give you $100,000.
Oh.
And I thought, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. So I submitted my tape and, admittedly, I thought it was pretty good. And they did too. I became a finalist.
No kidding.
And so I got to go on this interview and talk to this man. And it was very clear that he was not a follower of Jesus. And that's fine. I've got nothing against people who don't follow Jesus, right?
Mhm.
But I think he had a little axe to grind against me because I was. And it became apparent when we started talking,
Was it like a kind of a suspicious, like, what's up with this guy kind of thing, or what?
I think maybe a little bit of that. And he was pleasant enough, but I could tell that just because I was a Christian, and it was very obvious he was living a lifestyle that was not a
Yeah.
Christ follower, that he had a little bit of an axe to grind against maybe all Christians, not necessarily just me. And so I didn't get the job, even though think I was in the top three. Now, that could just be because, there were two other guys who were better. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but it
Uh,
stuck with you as a possibility. I get that. So you said it took you 4 years. I'm guessing you're referring to the Bible, and your kind of translation of it took you 4 years to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So, it's not the biggest book in the world, but it's one of them, right? It's
Yeah.
a larger volume. It's over 700,000 words, 760, I think my translation comes out.
So you didn't,
And
and when you did this, you didn't start like at the beginning, right? In the beginning, you started with
right.
passages and portions that you liked and that you thought would be what more suitable to be, more relatable to be translated.
Right. Yeah. So I initially did the passage out of Luke, and then I did the entire book of Luke, and then the book of
Right.
Acts, and Romans. So I was releasing it book by book. So even if now somebody goes on to Audible and say, well, he's got all these versions, right? Well, it's all basically the same thing. But if you just want to buy one book of the Bible, if you just want to buy the book of
I
Matthew,
got
you
you.
can do
Yeah,
that, right? Because I released it as I did it.
I got you. And so, what was your actual process for doing that, for sitting down and writing that stuff? Or did you just dictate it? Did you squirrel yourself away in a closet in a dark room with a little light, or how did you do that?
Yeah, so here in my voiceover studio, I have a computer, and this is how I did it. Many, many hours in front of the screen.
Hmm.
I took the original WEB, the World English Bible, and literally went through it sentence by sentence, saying, okay,
Wow.
can this sentence stand, or does it need revision? Okay, does this paragraph make sense, or do I need to reword it? So yeah, word by word, I went through it,
I can
and that's
see how
part of
that
it.
would take 4 years. Damn.
Yeah. And then the recording portion, right? The whole thing comes out at like 61 hours.
Hmm.
Well, for every hour, you're a radio guy, you know this. For every hour of audio, you've probably got 4 hours of back end work that you're doing on it. Just editing and cutting out the mistakes and
Hmm.
re-recording and then taking
Sure.
out the breaths, all of that stuff. So yeah, that's part of the reason why it took me 4 years.
Well, I can see that. Well, I totally feel that because right now I am for the first time narrating one of my. I've got 8 books, and my very first one was a nonfiction book that I wrote a long time ago. But it means a lot to me because it's something that really happened to me. It's a memoir, and it was highly researched at a time when there was no internet, no cell phones. I spent time in the library, but that's another story. But I decided finally I wanted to do an audiobook version of it, and I'm not going to pay somebody $1,000 to do it. So
Yep.
I'm doing it myself as we speak. It is hard, man. It's like I'm sitting, first of all, my voice isn't what it was in my mid 20s when I was at the height of my radio career. And it is like, it's some tedious shit. It's like, and making mistakes is so easy, especially now that,
Yes.
half of my brain is gone because I'm 70. But the mistakes and the editing, you're so right about that. For every 15 minutes of actual finished product, there's like a half hour at least of editing and going back. And this was a 300 page book. It's going to take, I'm only about 2/3 of the way now. I'm like, deciding, am I even going to finish this? So my hat's off to you, number one, for finishing it. And number two, for continuing to do that. Are you doing any audiobook work now, or do you do mostly shorter works?
So I've felt led to give something to Generation Z. They are a generation that has a spiritual interest, but not necessarily a depth just yet.
Hmm.
And they're facing a lot of things, I mean, they're the phone generation, right? So their brains have become rewired by using
Yeah.
their phones all the time.
Yep.
That's led to a lot of mental illness,
Hmm.
little trouble that they've had over that with that. And so I'm putting out this book. It's called A Dad's Words to Gen Z, a guide for reading the Bible in a year. So basically, it takes them through the Bible in a year. And for each day, there's a devotional. So it's me talking to them as if they are my child, what I would want them to know. And it's based on what they read for the day. So they'll read like 3 chapters of the Bible a day, and then they can listen to me or read what I've written about the devotional, dealing with the theme that occurs across those 3 chapters. I'm about halfway through it. I've finished all the devotionals, written them. I'm in the process now of editing and recording them, and I've got like 190 of them recorded. Taking a little bit of a pause to focus on some other stuff that I got to get done,
Okay.
but then I'll pick that back up. So hopefully by the end of the year, beginning of first of next year, it'll be out.
But one of the images you sent me was a cover that says the Bible in a year, 10 minutes a day. That's what this is?
Yeah, so it's an extension of that. So they can take that and then add this as a supplement, and it's
Okay.
kind of like a devotional for every day, so all 365 days.
I got you. So when you say that God led you to this, do you actually feel like a little like a is it a physical tug? Is it a spiritual tug? Is it a voice in your brain that says no, go this way? I'm trying to understand what that
Yeah.
means to you.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of all of that, right? So you just after you're in God for a while, you begin to hear his voice and understand when he is speaking to you and leading you.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean you get it right 100% of the time, but in general, you have an idea of what you're supposed to do. And it's usually confirmed through somebody else or through something that you read in the Bible. As an example, I was a young man getting ready to leave my parents' house and pursue this job at a Christian TV station in Florida. I
Mhm.
lived in California at the time, so I was going to move across country. Um, and one of the verses that I had been reading from the book of Proverbs stuck out to me. Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord whatever you do and your plans will succeed, right? So it's a book of Proverbs, so it's a generalization. Doesn't mean everything you do is going to succeed, right? But it's a generalization. This is a general life principle. So I read that, and that meant a lot to me.
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, this is committed to God, so I probably have a pretty high chance of success. As I'm getting, and I didn't tell anybody about this verse, as I'm getting ready to leave, my dad presents me with a Bible. Guess which verse he wrote at the very beginning of that Bible as a dedication?
Mhm.
Proverbs 16:3. So
Mhm.
that was just God's confirmation of like, yep, I'm with you in that. So I moved cross country. But yeah, it's kind of like that. You get a general sense, general feeling, and then it's often confirmed through someone else or through something that you read in the Word that lines up exactly with what you've been reading.
Cool. So tell us where to find the Holy Bible, the you call it the EUR version, easy to understand, comma, read. Where is that? Where do we find it?
If they want the audio version, it's at audible.com. If you want the ebook, you can go to amazon.com. I also have a few hardbacks, paperbacks that you can buy on amazon.com as well.
Okay. And do you have a website or a social media presence? I like to put these up on the screen in case
Uh,
people want to follow you.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably I'm terrible at social media, but I am on LinkedIn, so people can connect with me.
I really admire the fact that you follow your heart, you followed your faith, and it led you to success. I mean, by my account anyway. I don't know if you're a rich guy; it doesn't really matter to me. But success to me means so much more than that. You seem to be doing something that you like and you believe in it. And you've got a good family, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like things have kind of worked out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to say that I've been blessed in spite of myself. So yeah, I've been very, very fortunate.
Well, that's really great to hear. Well, good luck to you. I'll be looking forward to the other book when it comes out, and anything else that you're doing, because I think that yeah, you've got a great spirit and a great work ethic, and I'm really impressed with you. Dan Parr, really appreciate you joining me today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom.